You've tried to drink more water. You've tried to go to bed earlier. You've tried to take a walk every morning. And somehow, even though these things are simple, even though they don't require much time or effort, you still can't make them stick. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you lack discipline. And it's not because the routine itself is too hard. There's something else happening, something that has nothing to do with willpower. And once you understand it, a lot of things start to make sense. We think of routines as simple because the actions themselves are small. Drink a glass of water, stretch for 5 minutes, write in a journal before bed. These things don't feel complicated when you imagine them. They don't require special skills or equipment. They're just small, repeatable actions that should fit easily into your day. But the brain doesn't experience routines the way we imagine them. When you try to build a routine, you're not just repeating an action. You're asking your brain to remember something new at a specific time, in a specific context, while everything else in your life stays exactly the same. And that's where the problem starts. Your brain runs on patterns. It automates things you do regularly so you don't have to think about them. Brushing your teeth, locking the door, checking your phone when you sit down. These actions happen without much conscious effort because they've been repeated so many times in the same context that they've become automatic. But a new routine doesn't have that history. It's not automatic yet. It's a decision you have to make every single time, in the middle of a day that's already full of decisions. Research on habit formation shows that routines don't fail because people are inconsistent. They fail because the brain doesn't recognize them as necessary yet. A new behavior has to compete with everything else you're already doing. And most of the time, the existing patterns win. The brain follows the path of least resistance. It chooses what's already familiar. Think about what happens when you try to add something new to your morning. You wake up. You're already moving through a sequence your brain knows. Get out of bed, go to the bathroom, make coffee, check your phone. That sequence is smooth because it's automatic. It doesn't require much mental effort. Now imagine you're supposed to drink a glass of water before the coffee. That's one extra step. It sounds small, but your brain doesn't see it as small, it sees it as an interruption, a deviation from the pattern it's been running for months or years. So you forget, not because you don't care, but because your brain wasn't looking for that step. It wasn't part of the sequence it expected. Your brain was running on autopilot, and the new step wasn't included in that program yet. And here's the uncomfortable part. Every time you forget, it doesn't just feel like a small mistake. It feels like proof that you can't follow through, that you're not the kind of person who sticks to things, that something is wrong with you. But nothing is wrong with you. The routine just hasn't become automatic yet. And the process of making something automatic takes longer than most people realize, much longer than the popular myths suggest. Studies suggest that building a habit can take anywhere from a few weeks to several months, depending on the complexity of the behavior and how often it's practiced. But even that range doesn't capture the real challenge, because it's not just about repetition. It's about repetition in the right context, at the right time, with the right cues. If you're trying to take a walk every morning, but your mornings are unpredictable, the routine won't stick. If you're trying to journal before bed, but your evenings vary wildly depending on the day, the behavior won't become automatic. The brain needs consistency in the environment, not just in the action. It needs the same triggers, the same sequence, the same conditions, and most people's lives aren't that consistent. You wake up at different times. You have different obligations. Your energy changes, your schedule shifts. The context keeps changing, so the behavior never gets the repetition it needs to become automatic. Every variation resets the learning process slightly. This is why routines that work for other people don't always work for you. It's not because their routine is better. It's because their context supports it. They have a consistent wake-up time. They have a predictable morning. They have fewer competing priorities in that specific moment. Their environment is stable enough for the pattern to take hold. You don't. And that's not a failure. It's just a different situation. Your life has different variables, different demands, different rhythms. There's also the issue of cognitive load. Every decision you make during the day uses mental energy. What to eat, what to wear, what to respond to, what to prioritize. By the time you get to the end of the day, you're not just physically tired, you're decision tired. Your brain has been working constantly, evaluating options, making choices, managing information. And when you're decision tired, the brain defaults to what's easy, what's familiar, what doesn't require extra thought. So the new routine, the one that still requires conscious effort, gets skipped. Not because you don't want to do it, but because your brain is trying to conserve energy. It's protecting itself from overload. This is why evening routines often fail more than morning ones. By the time you get to the evening, you've already made hundreds of small decisions. Your brain is looking for shortcuts, and skipping the routine is a shortcut. It's the path that requires the least mental effort. It's also why routines fall apart during stressful periods. When you're dealing with something difficult, your brain has less capacity for managing new behaviors. It prioritizes what feels urgent or automatic. Everything else gets pushed aside. The new routine becomes optional in your brain's hierarchy of needs. And there's another layer to this. Routines often fail because they exist in isolation. You're trying to add one new thing without changing anything else, but your day is already full. Every minute is accounted for, even if it doesn't feel that way. So the new routine doesn't just need time, it needs space, and creating that space means something else has to move. Most people don't think about this. They just try to squeeze the routine in, and when it doesn't fit, they assume they failed. But the day was already full. There was no room. The failure wasn't personal, it was structural. There's also the problem of delayed rewards. Most routines don't have immediate benefits. Drinking more water doesn't make you feel dramatically better after one glass. Going to bed earlier doesn't fix your sleep after one night. The results are slow and subtle. And the brain struggles with delayed rewards. Research on motivation shows that the brain responds much more strongly to immediate feedback than to long-term benefits. This is why it's easier to check your phone than to meditate. The phone gives you instant stimulation. Meditation gives you benefits you might notice weeks later. The brain chooses the immediate reward almost every time. So when you skip the routine, there's no immediate consequence. You don't feel worse right away. And when you do the routine, there's no immediate reward. You don't feel better right away. The brain interprets this as a sign that the behavior doesn't matter, and it stops prioritizing it. None of this means routines are impossible. It just means they're harder than they seem. And the difficulty has nothing to do with the routine itself. It has to do with how the brain works, how much else is happening in your life, and whether the conditions are stable enough for a new pattern to form. If you've tried to build a routine and it didn't stick, it doesn't mean you're incapable. It means the context wasn't right, or the behavior hadn't repeated enough times in the same way, or your brain was managing too many other things at once. It means the environment didn't support the change. It means the timing wasn't aligned with how your brain actually functions. Understanding this doesn't fix the problem, but it does remove the shame. And sometimes that's enough to stop blaming yourself for something that was never really about you in the first place. The struggle isn't evidence of weakness, it's evidence of how complex behavior change actually is, and how little control we have over the conditions that make it possible.